So, this is another old chess battle advanced video, of course, which is a chess variant which has like over 400 new pieces and stuff like that. But I have made 4 other videos on it already, and I have mocked the developer in every one of the intros. So I figure I should explain my relationship to why I'm making videos on this game. This represents so much future work. The core of the game is incredibly excellent. There are many parts of this game that are excellent. It's also sad that the developer never got any content creators, despite a forum thread practically begging for it. And it's not a bad game, like, it deserves some people making videos on it, and just, that's never happened. Like, it never got roguelike deck builder popular. Asterisk this because it was popular at some point, but it's not the case anymore. Anyway, that's a minor point. The other thing is the developer also put, like, pay-to-win, half-baked Skinner box mechanics. You're not gonna notice the pay-to-win as much in the current version because the devs stopped updating for 3 years, and all we get is stupid beta teasers and obscure Discord channels. But yeah, and we have the classic pay-to-win developer justifications. Even now, certain design decisions make the game horrible to play at the highest level. Also, the developer attempts to funnel people in a cult leader Facebook ARG. Also, the developer is addicted to cryptocurrency and numbers going up in crypto games. Occasionally, you might find the developer giving some amazing takes on why society is such a disaster right now. Even if it's all true in that statement, don't believe the spaghetti monster, because someone who's actually doing something about it would not be doing this nonsense. Unfortunately, these are such big rabbit holes that this video is only going to cover the one about the bad balancing of the game that made the game pay to win. I guess I already did the Skinner box mechanics thing, the rest of the stuff will need its own video. Its own 5 videos or whatever. Goodbye. So the game has updates spanning as far back as 2015. And the game used to be updated a lot more frequently. It's funny there's statements in here that are no longer true, like upgrade units no longer has EXP requirement. And then here, basic pack now costs 500 dragon coins and contains 3 units. Wow, now it costs 1,000 and contains only 1 unit. So it's 1/6 as good as it was before. There have been extra sources to gain coins, but I'm wondering if the extra sources make up for freaking 1/6 the rate. This one's also funny to read, because losing king and only losing 1 morale would be so slow. It's so truly dumb. Like, armies start with 100 morale, so take a king and you still have to wait 75 turns to finish the game. And then next one, special offer added to store, allowing instant access to the newest units. I'm surprised this was deleted from the game. Like, you can't, this is not in the game anymore. Considering that unnamed, poorly balanced, #1 popular profitable CCG has basically turned paywalled, overpowered cards into the entire business model. But you can see the old shop in an old video. At this point, plus was the only highest tier. So I guess the mistake that the creator of old CBA made was that it wasn't $10. Now, as much as I would love to meme about this a little bit more, we actually don't have much data on what these updates were at the time because no one was playing, there was no archive. So we're gonna skip to the update that everyone actually did play, which is V35 and V36. And V37. These are really important because the game went from Facebook into Congregate. Of course, that site's now dead as well, but now probably the most ridiculous part about, like, there were tons of ridiculous things, but probably the most ridiculous one that I mentioned in my last video about checkmates is that there was a turn 1 checkmate available at the time where the portal could teleport a range 3 attacker. I have to simulate because it's not in the game anymore. But yeah, turn 1 checkmate was possible. Another ridiculous noob trap available at the time was a piece called Dragon+++, which has this massive close range attack range. So if you imagine this was next to the enemy king, in range 2 that would be a solo mate, except for the fact that the dragon can be captured. And what made this stupid when the game launched was this enchantress piece used to not have this enchant unit cannot target enemy king. So after you enchant, the opponent would have to make real sure that both of those are covered, and if they're not covered, the dragon can come and easily solo mate. Again, because the king used to be able to be targeted even if it was enchanted. This is also part of the reason why the dragon, so I have an image of like an archive of what it used to be, and yeah, it used to cost 30, which is 6 more than it does now, likely influenced by this existing. Another ridiculous thing was that the Enchantress used to be able to target this spot from where it currently is. Like, it didn't always have this moveset, and the enchant could enchant range 4. Yeah, this is what it used to look like. I one of the things the Spaghetti Monster loved to do was add these 21 costs. For some reason, 21 is always the meme number because it's equal to the cost of Queen. And this unit had the ability, on kill, opponent loses 5 morale and your king gains 5 value. So immense defense, immense morale reach, and the only penalty was it has very slightly less range than Queen and can't move like the Queen. And I felt this unit, like, as soon as I looked at it, was overpowered as hell, and, like, blatantly pay to win, and I feel kind of lucky to be early on enough in the game to enjoy playing with the overpowered version, because at now, the launch version is cost 25, and the rest of them have gotten cost nerfs as well. That's Vampire. Then there was freaking Phoenix, which did not have any moveset changes, that's still the same. But once again, I felt that the last tier was obviously overpowered because it has swap. Basically what this unit does is transform into an egg, and that it revives after a few turns. And the last tier, this took 6 turns to revive. You could also move the egg around. The egg is like a stationary unit, especially with Phoenix Plus itself having a 2-range swap. I felt this was obviously pay to win, especially if you had multiple Phoenix Pluses, because this was so dumb, because you could have a Phoenix that is highly undefended, but the swaps make it so easy to just swap one out. Oh, we have attacker, nope, swap it out, nope. I mean, it was really overpowered seeming, and sadly, I never got the chance to use the pay to win myself before it got nerfed. Even though I saw it coming from way before, but suffice to say, the cost is now 24, and now it takes 8 turns for it to revive. And the other tiers also got some nerfs in cost. One question, that is still a question that remains, you have to ask it for a lot of games, is when pay-to-win and overpowered stuff is in a game, is the developer clueless or doing it intentionally? In some cases, the developer has actually admitted to doing these intentionally, which I don't even know you should believe, because if you were secretly way more competent at balancing, you wouldn't have significantly underpowered units, but yet, there are units like PoisonMage Plus, which has not gotten a moveset change. It's been tier shifted, by the way. The comparison I'm making to is that this moveset has stayed the same, except that it got tier shifted again. It even got poison immunity. Would you like to guess what happened with the cost of this unit? It costs 6 less now. There was also Lifestone. It just looks like a bad idea. I don't know how you make this unit in the game. It literally gives you a value for free. Like, the 7 value one revives a 14 value champion that died. So, it's just 7 value for free. So, in later updates, it got pay 4, which wasn't enough. This is pay 4 morale, so it doesn't even spend any actual material value on the board. Then it became pay algebra. And then you needed to get nerfed even more on death, lose 7 morale, because the difference is that it can die to any attack, while pay only happens when you actually use the ability. Yeah, so the unit showed heavy restrictions on paying morale to get material value. Honestly, I could go through the gallery of all of these ridiculously costed units. I programmed this unit gallery and archive at a time when I wasn't aware of the Spaghetti Monster's crypto scam nonsense, but I do understand if you've played other card games, you might think, oh, just 4 cost unbalanced, minus 6 unbalanced there. What's so special about that? Well, let's just get started on the biggest disaster updates, huh?
And that gives you more.
So, I didn't show the Phoenix in gameplay before, even though I showed the unit's info panel. Basically, it has on melee death destroy the attacker, and on death it will also turn into an egg. So let's say a piece tries to attack that Phoenix. Well, it's very likely you'll get a 2-for-1 in terms of units. But of course, such an expensive champion trading for 2 pawns isn't worth it. It would be worth it if you could get this egg into a safe position. And there are actually units like the Summoner that can teleport the egg back into a safe position because it targets this square 3 ahead of it and can teleport it into a much safer spot. But obviously that Summoner only targets 1 square and is extremely telegraphed. So what if you could target any ally back into a safe position? You think the Spaghetti Monster wouldn't do that? Range 7 augmented. Teleport any target ally. I feel like I'm like the only one that is even remaining footage of this because people didn't upload this game at all. Like, we don't have video archives of all the stupid things the Spaghetti Monster did, but luckily we have it for this one. As you might imagine, this caused some major uproar. It's also genuinely one of the least counterable, and there were like many specific people who would have sucked hard at the game otherwise, but were able to farm anyone with the stupid nonsense. That also predicted, it wasn't 3, it was 2 months, but so you're not gonna predict the next turn of this stupid. So obviously the player base is wondering why the Spaghetti Monster has not been updating. Well, it's because the Spaghetti Monster talks about being in a psych ward, and that's why there's no update. I'm not kidding. Truth is, I got locked into a psych ward for not acting normal and have been prescribed medicine to slow my brain down. So I am running quite far behind, and the outside reality is still attacking me in many ways. So sorry, but the update isn't done yet, and I still can't fully commit to CEO right now. There's something I have to defend against soon, else it hits me from behind, so to speak. Don't take raiding too seriously in the meantime. This game isn't nearly done as an inverted deadline about 14 years from start to finish, meaning it isn't done until December 1st, 2025. That is the version 1 deadline. There may be some raiding resets or revamps along the way. Just try to make the best of it for now and pat yourself on the back each time you overtake the breakfast combo. Thank you all for playing. I shall return again soon. Their game is quite silly after all. So, good luck meeting a deadline when you take 2 and 3 year long breaks during it. Really gambling that super intelligence comes before then. Also, there's still been no rating resets, despite all the leaderboard exploits and disconnect cheaters, etc. This is the problem with the rabbit hole about the developer and all the insane crap, because people think it's a lie or it's exaggerated for drama. Like, I'll never be able to do talking about the most hilarious events, because believe it or not, the developers' embarrassments and crypto scams are not the most hilarious thing that happened. People think it's exaggerated or that I'm making things up for drama. It's just the developer just claims to be in psych wards to get out of nerfing the obviously broken combo for months. But wait, 2 weeks after that, the Spaghetti Monster Spaghetti posts on Facebook admitting to purposely keeping the pay-to-win the game as psychological aftercare for a pay-to-win player. One of these pay-to-win players would go on the developer's Facebook. Now, the point of the post is not the pay-to-win mental gymnastics of, oh, it's not an automatic win. It just forces the other players to think much harder to win. The real joke is the Spaghetti Monster's own reply, just waiting on Phoenix Beacon to do some magic on that forum. And then, the Spaghetti Monster releases the update. This is just a side topic. The Spaghetti Monster has posted about the game, feels like it's been artificially downranked by Congregate, that site that was the host to Old Chess Battle Advanced. Is this conspiracy theory true? I mean, maybe? Congregate promoted tons of awful, even more pay-to-win games back then, and there was, according to the Spaghetti Monster, rating manipulation that went on to downrank Old Chess Battle Advanced. But you have to wonder, with all these overpowered units that cause players to rage quit, some of this is definitely the Spaghetti Monster's fault. By the way, that was done with teleporting target ally, minion, or champion instead, which is kind of funny. I feel like it's kind of rude that it's so hard-coded, because you have to realize the egg and the king are not minion or champion. Now, let's say you're the developer. Okay, I guess I just forced you to imagine that you're in a psych ward and head-patting a pay-to-win player, so I guess that's a bad example, but imagine you just got done fixing a design that lets you get infinite free kills. You wouldn't add another way to get infinite free kills in the exact same update that you fixed the last one. So this is the released version of GravityMage, which has the ability to move a target unit in the direction of the ability target until blocked or ability target is reached, then freeze target unit for 1 turn. I'm not sure that's a very good description, it did get reworded, so I'm going to draw this unit's effect. This is the GravityMage right here, and its ability target is 4 ahead of it, so it's targeting this square. It has the ability to move and freeze for 1 turn, all of the things that are adjacent to it. Now, another thing that you need to know is there's a piece called Archer. Now, this was not the only piece that worked well with it, but this was the most common and cheapest one for obvious reasons. There's like other free kill stuff like Samurai that also did this effect, but this was the one that was most used. And what GravityMage would do is basically make that entire region of the board unusable for the opponent, because if any piece moved in it, you could just move it in, it'd be frozen so there's nothing you could do about it, and then destroy it the next turn with the Archer. Now, honestly, I wonder if that GravityMage would be a fair ability without the free kill stuff in the game. Of course, all of those GravityMage tiles effectively being destroy tiles is already worrying, but you know how this game is upgrades? The GravityMage Plus Plus literally had this range, and the Plus 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 edition had range 3. What the? Oh no, god damn it. This range. Oh, but actually, not this one. Not this one, because the GravityMage needs to move to that square, so it's all balanced, it doesn't have that one. Oh yeah, did I mention the GravityMage still had range 1 ability to move and swap? So in case it runs out of pieces to destroy for free, it can just move to different locations. Woo, amazing design, Spaghetti Monster. Or, you know, you could just run 2 GravityMages, nothing preventing you from doing that, but only certain people had access to that. Of course, since it targets 3 champions from row 1, the king was also likely to be part of the turn 1 back row, so you would like move your archer, pull whatever minion was in front of their king, destroy it, then move the king into the center and destroy that too. Great. It's gonna take 2 more months to fix the GravityMage. Well, this game is ruined. Based on the time it took to fix Phoenix Beacon, GravityMage is gonna take 2 more months to fix, killing the game in the process. Now, luckily for GravityMage, there were some things you could do about it. There are status immune units and curing units, so you had to morph your army in a very specific way to make it. But I'll never forget the Spaghetti Monster wall of texting, and like 90% of the counters the Spaghetti Monster lists are complete nonsense, suggesting Anti-Mage and Thunder Mage, which were stupidly underpowered at the time. There's so much stupid stuff on this list. Spaghetti Monster advocating suicide, etc. Somehow my favorite part of this pay-to-win smoke bomb is the Spaghetti Monster suggests that the most obvious overpowered piece in the update is anti-meta. Oh, also in the same update, this stupid air elemental unit came, and it's been nerfed bad since this. And to be fair, I don't know if it was 100% that overpowered in terms of playing against it with perfect play, but just a really stupid play experience. Or if the opponent forgets that these magic squares exist, and they could be quite hidden, because magic doesn't care about blockability, it could just gain value over and over. Really dumb unit. This is what it looks like in the actual current version. It's like much worse on the final tier. Anyway, version 43 rolls around, and it's the GravityMage doesn't get fixed update. So in version 43, this is the GravityMage now, and it's no longer range 3, but it's still range 2. Still completely zones out a big poo on the board. It's pay 2 instead of pay 1. Didn't do anything, and it needs to get changed again in version 44. Except it lost the freeze, so now it's useless. And so it got redesigned again to get much more attack and swap. We can clearly see this much better, but it's still useless, by the way, because it doesn't freeze, and so the movement barely does anything. It got changed to get buffed again. Still completely unplayable, so why not in version oh, I guess it doesn't get changed ever. However, a unit called Butterfly got introduced. I know it's a wall text, but hold on. I only bring this up because basically it marks the location after 20 turns, and if that location contains an enemy, that unit is destroyed. So what you basically need to know is that this unit had the timing to synergize with GravityMage, because you would fire like a 0-cost Butterfly on the ability target, then move it, which gave you a free piece. Except that you clearly had to pay way too much in order. Whoops. Whatever. That basically, overcosting is basically what it's like to overpay for the GravityMage Butterfly combo. So of course, GravityMage was then completely reworked. So now it has a lot more range, and the Butterfly combo is actually much more usable. But it gains some fancy teleport ability. Losing attacks is very stupid for it. But still, it's kind of actually good. Like, I do not mean good as in viability, but this unit was very fun to play with. Like, the move target unit toward ability target was weak, but if you add enough squares, then it can get enough utility to be overall, like, interesting with combos. So that's why the Spaghetti Monster completely reworked it into this piece of crap. This is how it still is in the release version. It's actually sad how the Spaghetti Monster basically completely gutted this unit. In fact, it's so bad that the unit metrics show that one of the tiers of GravityMage has had 0 uses over the past 2 years, with a divide by 0 error on the win rate. The Spaghetti Monster is also still defending the ungodly overpriced pay 2 on the current GravityMage, because the new GravityMage can move up to 8 things at a time. Version 43 is also the update where this thing spawned 4 value saplings. I shall not explain further. The spaghetti monster would then go on to say that the update 0.44 is corrupted. Like, genuinely everyone was feeling sad for the spaghetti monster, even though some question whether this was another ARG or bit like the Psych Ward. All I gotta say is, if the spaghetti monster was a genius since 2012, I'm surprised that the spaghetti monster could not find a backup system. However, something very ridiculous is in what the spaghetti monster will portray about not wanting to make financial greed a part of old Chess Battle Advance. The spaghetti monster says this multiple times. The greed update won't have much in the way of actual greed.
Free rook right here. 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 Free rook right here.
So, here's greed when it launched. In particular, the last 2 tiers, or how about just the last tier? You know, Rook in this game costs 12. Here's the spaghetti monster giving you a moveset that can be arguably described as equal to Rook with 0 cost. I don't know how anyone could see this as being anything but extremely overpowered, especially because of the Lifestone. Remember Lifestone? At least that unit is a vulnerable liability because it doesn't have any attacks and requires a suitable unit to die first. Like, the more you think about it, the stupider it gets. Like, if you trade it away, you get bonus material because you didn't pay anything to get this piece. If you don't trade it away, that's almost if the unit didn't even have a penalty at all, so, like, it only happens on death. So it's literally free value if it doesn't die. Anyway, there's only one rational response to this.
Free rook. Yeah, man. Free rook. Oh, hi, Frog.
Greed is massively strong.
While searching through the Spaghetti's Monsters post-history again, there were barely any comments about greed. I guess it was just too obvious to even defend from Mr. Work Magic in these forums. Here's what I would imagine the Spaghetti Monster was like.
There was no free rook, you guys. What are you talking about? What free rook?
It's also hilariously sad how long this took to properly nerf. Just guess how long this took to nerf. This unit was added November 11th. In the next version, it now on death lose 20 morale. Let's just focus on the last tier. Next update, nothing happens. Next update, it gets buffed! I mean, you can't make this up. Like, yeah, loses -2 morale, but something doesn't even happen, so it's nice. You just gained extra move and range. Woo. Nothing next update. Nothing next update. Nothing. Okay, hold on. It changed to lose 3 more morale next update. Is it still balanced? Is it? No, it got nerfed to this. It only took like a freaking year. Anyway, like 4 years later, the Spaghetti Monster would admit that it added greed as intentional pay to win, despite multiple forum posts saying it wouldn't be.
That's a free rook.
See, we already know the Spaghetti Monster likes lying sometimes. I don't even know whether I can trust that the developer saying that this unit was intentionally pay to win is actually true. Because remember, there's tons of stupid underpowered units that also get released. And what's the monetary benefit to releasing a stupidly underpowered crap? Plausible deniability for your pay to win ones? This is why I still don't know if the Spaghetti Monster was actually adding pay to win crap, or was just that bad at balance overall. Honestly, we just wish that the Spaghetti Monster was more honest about its motivations. But yeah, also, the same update that added greed also added 3 extremely overpowered units and 2 extremely underpowered units. So this includes Snake, which is one of the most toxic game designs. It's probably, if I were to make a video about the top 10 worst designs, this would be part of it. Basically, the Snake on turn 1 could go attack some minion. That minion would be forced to move out of the way to prevent a 2-for-1. But that would also be a location very easy to hit with the Snake again, and if the threat gets ignored, the Snake gets an easy 2-for-1 up trade by poisoning the unit on death. Now, in later updates, what happened to this unit was it poisons attacker of a different value or less. Different as in because it changed between updates. So at least now expensive units could take the Snake without dying, but if you didn't have the correct arrangement of numerical values in your army, it would still be toxic as hell and get easy 2-for-1s. So in later updates, this got changed. First buff to 15 for some freaking reason. I don't know. And now the current version is value 10 or less. So at least most armies have counterplay against it now, even though sometimes it just gets a free 2-for-1, and yeah, it's a horrible design. There was a Pikeman. The closest comparison was Fireball at the time, which eventually actually lost its destroy target. Pay 1, by the way. But Pikeman was basically Fireball, but it didn't die when you attacked, so this was clearly way too much, especially the freaking unblockable death nuance. So that unblockable death thing eventually became a passive that didn't affect every type of unblockable, and the cost went way up. We don't need to talk about the underpowered versions of Mercenary and Envy. However, Reaver in this update was just as stupid. Like, some of these comparisons should make it immediately obvious that something's wrong. It's -5 cost for this Reaver to lose some moves, and this lose morale thing doesn't even happen unless you're already doing well in terms of using its trade ability or using its control. The Reaver ++ Legionary comparison isn't even better either. This would be clearly overpowered if it was cost 7 versus cost 9, but instead it's on-kill lose morale and cost 3, which is even better than that. As usual, this also took absolutely forever to nerf, and it only took... there. So just like Greed, it took a year for it to go to this 5 cost, 7 morale lose, which is still played in some armies. My favorite part about this, if you go back a little bit, is the time when it changed the first tier of Reaver from cost 1 lose 4 morale to cost 1 lose 3 morale. Because your new overpowered unit with poor balancing needed to be buffed. Now, version 45 ended up not being very interesting. I mean, some overpowered stuff came up that got revived by Lifestonewell, which made it worse. But compared to the other stuff, this is, you know, that all the overpowered crap from the last update didn't get nerfed properly. It didn't introduce any new overpowered things, so it's progress, Spaghetti Monster. The only biggest suspicious thing about the update was the Water Elemental ++, which looks a little suspicious next to Warrior ++, because that ability zones out the entire close range blind spot of the piece. So this is Angel, a piece design that's very questionable whether the Spaghetti Monster should have ever made. This is something that I brought up in the Turn 1 Checkmates video, but Angel exacerbated the problem of adding yet another trap to worry about in army building, where White could do a Turn 1 fork, threatening to either Turn 1 take a king or some other valuable piece on the right side, or if your opponent defended on that square, to fork the left side. So, not only that, but a previous unit, Ninja, had a very suspicious comparison to Angel, which had the same number of attack squares, but Angel is swapped for some reason. It attacks 2 squares from range 3 instead of 1, and even a bonus on death ability. So it's ridiculous this ever launched at this cost, and so it eventually became cost 15. Another piece of nonsense about Angel is that the game doesn't have any repetition, extreme move repetition rule, and while Angel now is like iconic enough that people just accept it's in the game, it's a piece that gave players more reasons to rage quit forever because it just made this repetition problem so obvious. The only way this game ends is move decay, where both players' morale goes down by 1 per turn. This game's only gonna last about, like, 80 more turns or something. Great gameplay, Spaghetti Monster. For bonus points, the last tier of Old Angel +++ was yet another overpowered unit costed at 21. It's so obvious, that thing. Super annoying to play against in endgame. Still kind of is, but at least it doesn't freaking cost 21 anymore. But yeah. There's a unit called PoisonMage that is basically more propaganda against pawns, since its ability is that it can poison an enemy unit, destroying them in 3 turns. Now, your opponent will constantly need to reply to the free kill threat. Even though the classic chess army does actually have chances to poke it a billion times, there are players, this is a really common freaking playstyle for some reason, but they'll move the Poison Mage, like, way more than the other units, and just constantly wasting time and being annoying because of the free kill threats, even though it's one of the weaker free kill threats in the game. And these armies don't even have a reason to be wasting turns like this, but it happens anyway, and the Poison Mage usually dies to something stupid, like this minion that can target, an enemy that targets Frostbite is frozen for a turn, so that's like a really common way it dies. Anyway, what if that thing got range 3 poison? Oh wait, yeah it did. Seriously, what the hell? I surely don't need to explain that this range 3 is far more difficult to poke the Poison Mage at this range. You knew what you were doing, Spaghetti Monster. You may think that it's a hilarious social experiment, but you'll never get old Chess Battle Advanced to be successful if you pull this shit. Anyway, I'm sure the Spaghetti Monster learned its lesson and will not be doing that ever again. This theme also had some very interesting buffs, like I remember the community suggesting Mage Tower looked underpowered for so long, but actually was really good at 8. It's amazing how good this became. But then there's the ones like Behemoth, which no one asked that one to be buffed, and that was obviously OP. Font armor at 7. Anyway, I guess it makes sense that this is the same day Greed got freaking buffed. Turns out, when you only spend 5 days to make an update, you don't have the time to put in anything overpowered, I guess. Now, there are some overpowered free kills, like this thing turns ally minions into skeletons that help you, or undercosted Apprentice++, which is way too much utility and great attack range for what it's doing. But that's more normal overpoweredness. So this is something that, once again, I went over a bit in the Unfair Checkmate Traps video. The short explanation is there's a combo involving this unit, which has armor from all adjacent squares. So if you teleport it, then enchant it, making the unit immune to melee death for 2 turns, then push it away. This is enchanted so the opponent cannot knock the armor off, and then you take the unit, and then this checkmates the king, since the armor prevents you from actually taking it. Now, of course, the enemy could just counter at any point by moving a unit forwards, and prevent the win from making it all the way over, but the Disaster Update Nexus allowed 7 squares of teleportation to the enemy's 3rd row, meaning there was literally not enough time to block all of the positions it could teleport to while being immune at the same time. Because of this, the Nexus had to be updated to this much weaker version in like a day. It's amazing how this game used to have 1-day emergency patches, and most of the new units in this update launched in incredibly underpowered states except for Nexus. Though special shout out to this unit, its Pry unit spawned a copy pasta, and that first tier went from cost 12 to cost 6 in an update, woo. Lich is a contender for being one of the worst designed units in the game. It actually does create some interesting scenarios when you think about the game abstractly, because it interacts with paying the morale. So they're paying 4 for material out of their total morale. But Lich creates these awful, horribly slow scenarios where you just spawn infinite skeletons, and eventually there's so many skeletons your opponent is forced to trade very poorly for the skeletons you can spawn infinitely. And so, especially if your opponent's playing an only melee army, skeletons inevitably overwhelm the board, and the worst part is the other player has to play it through. The sense that because there's morale decay, there's a chance that the Lich player loses to morale before it can successfully convert that material in being able to uptrade all its skeletons. Now, this combo has actually existed for a long time, but remember the greed overpowered unit also lasted for like a year. It's not new to this update, but because this is the update where stuff like the greed finally got nerfed, and also because people generally don't usually play armies that are this slow, it didn't become a problem until this update, when players actually discover it and then would get nerfed next update. Now, the Dryad part of the combo was that it could create infinite amounts of saplings that also promoted to trees, and the trees gave you a net +4 value for every tree that you planted, which basically negated the downside of 1 skeleton each. You could place these infinitely if you had board space, and Lich gives you the board space, so it's stupid. The Dryad now only gives +1 value overall for each sapling, and all was well. Well, then the developer made the skeletons cost 4 to summon again, and then made new ways of gaining morale advantage. This is also one of the armies that still kind of exists in the game. Not the Dryad part, at least, but the Lich horrible gameplay still exists. Hey, remember how that PoisonMage used to have a range 3 free kill? Welcome back. So this thing, at least it's an ability that isn't actually an attack, but it deletes all of the abilities, which includes the attacks, and turns them into default moves, so turning the pawn into some weird movement machine that is basically useless. And of course, this being a range 3, it had all the problems of PoisonMage, basically. At least its movement was much worse, but it was still so overpowered, so obviously overpowered, that the Spaghetti Monster changed it. So instead of magic, it was pay 1 ranged. Well, except Spaghetti Monster did that emergency update in such a rush that it forgot the colon that's supposed to be there after the pay 1 text. But anyway, after the predictable community backlash and forum threads, the Spaghetti Monster decided to reply to this by not developing the game for 2 years. Purchase Ruby. Fund game updates and server costs. No, it doesn't. There hasn't been an update for 3 years. It's going to cigarettes and crypto games. However, this time there was a saving grace. VoidMage was a legendary unit, and far too expensive to purchase for most players, so the developer's wise, exorbitant pricing of legendaries saved the day. Anyway, what was the Spaghetti Monster doing during the 2 years of non-development? Well, the Spaghetti Monster actually came back mostly to promote the game's new crypto forum, which there are still remnants of in the game. If you go here, it is now basically dead because the Steam forum is the one people actually used, but you know, old Chess Battle Advanced. The Spaghetti Monster would also start posting beta teasers of a completely different game, but not mention that it was a completely different game, to continue confusing the community. This game is still not out, by the way. People thought 100 new skill trees was going to be added to old CBA. Also, the famous inventor of Chess Battle Advanced commented on this post, even throwing a little bit of mockery at the assassinated word in the original post. I swear to God, this recurring problem where I die and rebirth with no memory of WTF I was doing before I was assassinated is a euphemism for sleep. Here's the Spaghetti Monster even admitting that it likes to describe boring things with more spaghetti descriptions, whereas teasing this mind mapping feature, calling it revisualizationism, and how it's gonna make these slow replays more fun to watch. Thank you, Spaghetti Monster, for pretending that this unit would do anything other than take the knight. Here's also another amazing forum thread by the Spaghetti Monster. About Queen's game. You only need to know her name. Unlike Game of Deviants, there is no ambiguity. If you have the slightest doubt, you haven't figured it out. Standard rules, you have until November 5th to solve it, or chaos escalates. Again. I estimate 50-50 that even a single person will take that seriously.
If you continue on and you do not listen to me, you're gonna put this entire timeline in chaos, so...
Anyway, the Spaghetti Monster finally updated the game, finally rebalanced VoidMage, and added a new underpowered unit. Spaghetti Monster also had to do this because of the Steam transfer, since the original site that this hosted, the game Congregate, also died. The Spaghetti Monster then made another update with no new units. Like, it's kind of... Isn't it great the game is the most balanced when the Spaghetti Monster isn't doing any balance changes? The game has been actually brute force balanced is what I would call it. There are some funny details about the updates that I didn't mention here because they just weren't prominent enough, but I feel like I gotta mention the old CBA dark mode. It's hysterical how this was implemented. Oh, it only changed the background, huh? Your username is a pixelated, blurry mess. And even in light mode, there's basically like an outline behind it, like a blurry outline glow behind it. So it now looks blurred in both light and dark. Fantastic feature. Also, the board and, like, the board is primarily white anyway. And yep, this is the latest update is in 2021, though the Spaghetti Monster's been posting some teasers over the past year. One excuse for not updating anymore after coming back was a line that got mocked by many people where the game was old Chess Battle Advanced is acquiring 5 new players per day. By now, it should have a player base of over 1,500 players. However, the developer is too busy playing cryptocurrency scam games with over 8,000 Twitter followers to keep any of those players. Oh, I'm finally glad to be basically done with this video. Now I can continue developing my Minesweeper roguelike game. By the way, this is just a small part of why Chess Battle Advanced became a thing, as people who are sick of the Spaghetti Monster's garbage have taken to making their own games, of varying quality. These games have their own rabbit holes of nonsense, but there's a chance that I abandon this channel forever after uploading this video, because this crap took too long to make. Goodbye.